Can you see me?
There you are.
Okay. Well, I just sent her a text. Okay.
David? I've been promoted.
Well, if everyone is ready, I'm going to go ahead and convene the regular session of the City Council. Let's see. Bear with me, I know what I'm doing. If everyone would join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd appreciate it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I mean, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Councilmember Bagby.
Present.
Councilmember Bagby.
Oh, I said present. Sorry, you couldn't hear me.
Thank you. Councilmember Brigham.
Here.
Councilmember Cruz.
Present.
Vice Mayor Turner.
Present.
And Mayor Walter.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, could we have a report out of closed session with action taken?
Mayor, there was no reportable action taken. However, for the record, the council did consider property negotiations related to the Times Square property, and Council Member Cruz did not participate, given that her home is next door to the Times Square property.
Okay, thank you. Conflict of interest to declare. Anyone? Okay.
City Attorney Sanchez, do I need to recuse myself on 4, or that's just general?
And I think that the item that you're mentioning is the Baumgardner
No,
project.
no, it's the,
Oh, the ad valorem?
yes.
No, you don't, because the ad valorem applies to everybody. So that is general. That applies to the public generally.
Okay, making sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Cruz. Anyone else with thoughts of a conflict? Okay, how about agenda review? We're going to make an adjustment and we're going to be moving an MOU up to the top of the agenda.
Correct, Mayor. First of all, starting with item number 7, staff is requesting the continuation of the public hearing to a date certain, which we recommend at this time to be your next council meeting or August 26th.
Okay.
And then item number 8, which is a draft memorandum of understanding. Just a request is whether council's in agreement to move that up for discussion amongst the council sooner on the agenda. And it's at council's pleasure where you want to place it.
Yeah, why don't we do it right after public comment? Okay. All right, then we're going to go ahead and change that. We're going to move item number 8, memo of understanding with the Unified School District, up to be the first item right after public comment. With that being said, why don't we go ahead and do public comment? Anyone wishing to address the City Council on items that do not appear on tonight's agenda may do so. Understand that the City Council cannot take any action on your items, but please come up to the podium here at CPAC if you have any comments to share with us. And Irene, is there anyone in the audience on Zoom that would like to talk to us?
We have no hands raised, Mayor, on Zoom.
Okay. Well, then let's move it along. And the next item will be item number 8, which is a draft memorandum of understanding between the City of Cloverdale and the Cloverdale Unified School District pertaining to a school resource officer. David or Chief Ferguson?
Mayor, I'll start on this item. The item in the packet today is a memorandum of understanding, or MOU for short, for a school resource officer that would be provided by the Cloverdale Police Department to the Cloverdale School District. Our police chief developed a draft MOU, which was included in your agenda packet. This item was discussed by the Joint City School Subcommittee, and the Joint City School Subcommittee recommended that the MOU be provided to the City Council for their review and consideration. The request tonight is for City Council to review the MOU and provide direction on next steps. We're not asking for its formal adoption this evening. We're just asking for your feedback. And with that said, I'd like to turn over the presentation of the MOU to Police Chief Jason Ferguson. Chief.
Thank you, David. Mayor, members of the council. I realize this is a rather lengthy staff report, so I'm not going to go over it, in great detail, but I do want to capture a lot of the things that are important about it. As outlined in the staff report, the city and the school district have jointly executed cooperative agreements dating all the way back to 1994, with some updates throughout the years as they were deemed necessary. The current cooperative agreement has existing provisions for things like water conservation, joint use of facilities, event security, crossing guard, but also the position of a school resource officer. Up until May of 2017, the school resource officer position was staffed by a reserve police officer. And upon his retirement, the position was staffed by police officer Ricky Rhodes, and with a primary function of providing instruction in the DARE and GREAT program. In November of last year, like David said, I began drafting a standalone school resource officer MOU between the city and the school district. And that was a result of ongoing discussions with Superintendent Decker and a joint interest in establishing a full-time school resource officer with a shared cost by the district in the amount of $20,000. The intent of revising the current agreement was to really create a more robust agreement, which outlines specific language and identifying roles and responsibilities of both the school district and the police department. And it also outlined a fee schedule for the school resource officer services over the course of a 3-year period. The MOU was reviewed by the city attorney, as well as the school district, and it was finalized on March 11th of 2020. Shortly after that finalization, on March 20th, 2020, the district sent notice advising that due to the pandemic, school would be suspended and further educational instruction would be provided through distance learning, which continues to remain the protocol for the school to date. So with the onset of the pandemic, several challenges, as outlined in the staff report, which hopefully everybody read, have impacted the city and the PD's ability to move forward with the school resource officer position as we originally envisioned. Concerns regarding the ability to dedicate an officer to the position are a result of budget constraints, fiscal impacts to the city from COVID-19, a staffing shortage currently existing here at the police department, and the added collateral duty of the newly created civil enforcement process, and most notably, the distance learning instruction. As we know, the key function of the SRO is to be present and visible on campus, interact with the students, and build positive relations, as well as investigate potential police matters that occur on campus. And without that campus education, the need for an SRO is really unclear. As your police chief, I recognize the desire for a dedicated school resource officer within our schools, but given the current situation, I am of the opinion that now is not necessarily the best time to implement this position. Tonight, I am requesting the review of the MOU and seek council's direction on the next steps, including the evaluation of potential alternatives to the existing proposed dedication of a full-time officer for SRO. I know that I have had a couple of questions by council members. If you want at this time, I can open that up for any questions you have. The questions that were posed to me had a lot to do with the training requirements for the position And I'd be more than willing to address that if council still has a desire to ask questions about it.
Thank you, Chief. I think it's important that you do share those questions and those answers, because it may answer a lot of questions that all of us may be having. I know I called you or sent you a text over the last day or so and told you that I was going to be calling on you for you to share with us how long it actually takes to hire an officer, send them to class, and bring them up to speed. What's the timetable that looks like? And where I go with that is if all of a sudden the school board and Sacramento say, okay, first of the year, we're going to be having everybody back in class. How long would it take us to gear up and get that officer ready to go in?
That's a great question, Mayor. And to answer that, as it stands right now, there is no post requirement for the position of a school resource officer, because the officer is employed with a municipality. In other words, we send somebody over there and we don't have any requirement by post that they have any training. The only requirement that exists that post mandates is if campus district has its own police department, hires the police department and or a community college or state school. In this case, Santa Rosa Junior College has a police department, and Sonoma State. Those school resource officers do require that post-mandated training. With that being said, and we've done this before at Cloverdale, we would definitely want ours to receive that training, whether it was mandated or not. We think it's vitally important. And that particular course is about an 80-hour course. There's also a campus law enforcement course that is very beneficial. That is also an 80-hour course. And then if we were to continue with the DARE and GREAT program, that is a requirement, although not post required, but it is a requirement if you were going to teach the DARE and GREAT curriculums. So we would certainly have to send the officer to those schools. That doesn't mean they can't go in first and start working in the system of a school resource officer. It just means at some point when we start doing the curriculum, we have to send them to that course. And I believe the DARE is 80 hours. And I believe GREAT is also 80. It may be 40. I might have to check into that. But I know another council member posed a question about particular types of training as it relates to the atmosphere and the culture of law enforcement right now. And I just want to address that the school resource officer position also does not separate that type of training, whether it's cultural diversity, racial bias policing, or anything like that. We are already trained in that by mandates that we have no control over. We are going to be trained in that, and we are. So anybody who was to go to the school resource officer position would already have those training requirements through the department itself. And we will continue to train in any mandates that come down and legislative changes, which we know are going to come. We will already have that training. It's really no different than a police officer who responds to any one of the campuses currently to handle any kind of an issue. They're not specifically trained in any school resource officer position. They respond as your standard police officer with all the training requirements, and they go to the school campuses and handle it. And so I wanted to clarify that. Our training requirements are the same as what you will see in the MOU under section B, subsection 2, where it outlines our requirements for our police officers to have training and adhere to legislative and policy requirements. So those would be covered in that area already. So
when Officer Rhodes was over there as the school resource officer, did he teach the DARE classes and the CARE classes?
In the GREAT, yes.
Yeah, okay. So, and I guess where I'm going with this, like I said, if they said that school was going to be open the first of the year, how quickly could we enter into an MOU? I know the chair of the school city subcommittee, and I believe, not to talk for her or for Vice Mayor Turner, but I think they're in favor of kind of holding off on this until we kind of see what happens.
Right.
And I just want to make sure that when it does happen, that we could expedite it pretty quickly.
And I certainly understand that, Mayor. As outlined in the staff report, we certainly have some challenges right now that would have to be solved before we could really dedicate somebody full time over there. And one of those is we are currently short staffed due to a member being out. And with that short staffing, it would then remove somebody else off of the streets to put over there and create a bigger challenge with staffing, ultimately impacting the budget through an overtime process of having to constantly backfill again now for not just the one position, but now potentially two. So I have to be cautious in answering this. Ideally, if we're fully staffed and school is no longer operating in the distance learning capacity, well, certainly we'd want to get one over there full time as quickly as possible to go with the program of being on campus and interacting with the children. But as it stands right now, we're challenged with being short staffed in that regard. And that would be our biggest challenge. And I don't have an answer as to whether or not that challenge is going to be fixed by the first of the year.
Okay. One more question, Councilmember Cruz, and then I'll call on you. But in the distance learning environment, I'm not sure how the school district is planning on delivering the care in the DARE classes. And if that's going to be an in-house teacher that's going to do it, or if they're going to call on the police department to teach that class. Any idea on that?
You know, that has not been addressed to me specifically. And that certainly would be something we'd have to, address when it comes. It's typically not at the first of the year for beginners, for beginning. And then, we'd have to see how that looks. And I don't necessarily know, given the current environment or atmosphere right now with the school, if that's even a possibility.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Cruz, would you like to, as the chair of that committee, would you like to add a few things?
Well, before I do, I want to follow up on some of your questions, Mayor. So, Chief, all these 80 hours, who's going to pay for that?
So if it's post-certified, it's post-reimbursable to some degree. So we would get some expenses paid for that training. And I would just have to see if that particular course is post-reimbursable. But do keep in mind, it is not mandated. And therefore, if it was a matter of a financial budget issue, they wouldn't have to attend that course, if that makes sense.
But it would be something that if the council recommended, it would take place.
It would definitely take place, and we would certainly do everything in our power to see if Post is covering that and reimbursing. Unfortunately, with Post, it's not uncommon now every year to see where they've cut funding, reimbursement for specific types of training. I would just need to see what level of training this is and whether or not Post still reimburses for that.
And would that be something that the school district would cover?
Well, we'd certainly have to have those talks with them, and it's certainly something we can address with them.
Okay.
Councilmember Cruz, if I can weigh in,
Yes.
just to add to Chief Ferguson's comment on the post training, just for reference and for members of our community, the police department budget currently provides funding for our officers to participate in post funding or the training provided by Post. And so that is a cost within our that's included and identified within our budget. As the chief mentioned, the portion of that cost is reimbursed directly from Post, but it is definitely within council's discretion if one of the feedback points on the MOU is that the school district is responsible for the cost of that training. So we could certainly note that and if directed by council, include that as a point in the MOU.
Also, not only the training, the cost of the training, but the hours that this policeman would be in training, that is billable, right? So
when you say billable, that's ultimately the Post would reimburse for the course expense and the time and travel for the officer of that. So there is reimbursement in those areas if that's what you're asking.
But it would have to be during work time for this particular officer.
The officer gets the officer gets paid while he's in the course. Yes, if it's during the week, he would get paid for that. But that's also what's reimbursed from post in that regard.
Okay, see, all those details we as council need to be aware of, so we know where it all falls in terms of monies. I think Marianne has a question. Mr. Mayor, would you like for Marianne to come in here at this moment?
I've got it okay, Marta. Thank you for your assistance. I turned my mic on now.
No, what I mean is because I have other questions, but should we go ahead and let her?
No, I'd like you to finish.
Okay, all right.
It's
right.
your stage. Go ahead.
Okay, so regarding this agreement, I wanted to know if the parents have been consulted on this particular venture.
I'm not 100% sure what you're asking me, like each individual parent of the students have
Well,
been.
you know, if the school district is deciding on having an SRO, if I were a parent, I would like to know if there's going to be an SRO present in the campuses where my child is going to be. Is that something that is absolutely decided by the board and the council, or is that something that's decided by parents?
Councilmember Cruz, where are you going with this type of questioning? Do you not want to see a school resource officer placed in the school?
No. I have had constituents comment on the SRO, and today we received a letter also from a parent for SRO. I think it's logical that we ask how this decision comes about.
Well, I don't know if, you know, I think some of these questions should be directed to the school board. I don't know that we can answer them.
Mayor, if I may.
Please.
Okay, so Marta, and maybe this will help a little bit. There has already been an agreement in place that included an SRO. It's been in existence. I think I even established from the 94. There has been some level of this. So I think it's well known that there's times where this is in place. And currently, because of these issues taking place, it's not in place. But ultimately, I think what you're asking, the decision comes to the school board and the city and its MOU and the decision to incorporate that. And in this case, I've addressed how the school board has been willing to bear the burden of a financial portion of this, and the city also doing that. But ultimately, through that MOU, that is where that decision is made, and it has already been in existence. I simply was revamping the current MOU as it relates to the SRO and kind of giving it more weight and more teeth, if you will, about whose responsibilities, who each organization is going to have what responsibilities and roles.
Okay, then thank you for that clarification. Then let's see, I underlined some things here. It talks about invoicing the city for the costs. And I would like to know what is the status of the school board or the school district in terms of any fees due to the city as of today.
I think I'm going to defer that question to David if he doesn't mind handling that.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely happy to address that question. And we also have present our finance director, Susie Holmes, and Susie may need to double check the exact extent to which the current status of invoices. There has been outstanding invoices that have not been paid by the school relative to the crossing guard services that were billed by the city pursuant to the existing cooperative agreement. So that's something that we need to check on the status as to whether we've been made whole on the invoices that have been submitted to the school district. And
They,
that's
they
something
are paid current. for all billing for this school, for the crossing guards. They've paid all of their invoices.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm not sure who's talking now. Councilmember Cruz, were you done with your questions?
No, I still have several. I have an issue with some of the language on page 460. Actually, at the bottom of 459 and of attachment 2, well, that's the agreement. It says documenting all incidents of crime that occur upon the campuses as per department regulations, and performing the necessary follow-up investigations as needed to identify perpetrators of crime, and performing any follow-up on cases as deemed necessary by the department. I would like to know, what is the statistics up until when the SRO retire of incidents of crime at the school district? I'm new to the town, I'm not aware, and I'm not up to date on this. And I would like to know what have been the incidents of crime that have been, that had happened in the school district. And also, if it's incidents of crime, wouldn't that be to the regular police department, or is that going to be also for the SRO?
So I will address a couple of things. Let me start with, I did not provide statistics tonight. I apologize for that. I wasn't expecting those, but I can certainly get them. But let me clarify your other parts. Criminal activity can happen on a school, and that can be as low end of vaping on campus is a crime. There are also other school campus related penal codes that relate to somebody who brings a pocket knife to school. These are crimes, and that's why you will see that in there, because those have to be investigated. And by the definition of investigation, we're going to do the interviews, we're going to do the follow-up interviews with other students that might have seen this. So that's really the interpretation of that, because the crimes do happen on schools. I think you may be looking at the bigger picture of crimes that you think maybe our whole police force gets involved in. The last part of that is the school resource officer is specifically there to handle those types of incidents. And ideally, when the campus is in session and students are on the campuses, with any luck, the idea is to have that officer visible and present to deter those types of criminal activities. And if they do happen, he or she is there to handle that because they're responsible for those at the campus.
Okay. And then in regards to that same language, would it be, since you just said it's a violation of a school code, couldn't that be a better way of saying it rather than to say or imply that there are going to be students that are really into the criminal acts when they're just violating something?
So let me give you an example. There probably is a school rule about bringing a knife to school, but there's also a penal code section, a criminal section under 646.9 that covers that the officer would be investigating if they so choose, and that's and they go to investigate that from a criminal nature. Aside from the school's policies on bringing the knife, there's also that element from the criminal side and the penal code side.
And that is all fine. I just have a problem with, I understand truancy, that's, light, but then to use the word crime is like almost saying we have criminals in the school. So I have an issue with that language. And then again, on number 2, gang-related violence and crime and criminal trends. And then, the whole language of criminal activity and so on, is, is it possible to make it sound a little bit less harsh? And perhaps Jose might say if it's appropriate to say crime, or if it's appropriate to say violation of rules or penal codes or such.
And if I may, Mayor, just to answer that quick question, we can definitely wordsmith an agreement. I think that if you say crime or violation, we could definitely look at whether that makes a difference, especially if it's a violation of the penal code, that's potentially a crime, or it is a crime if it's if it's a violation of the penal code. And Chief, we could work together if that's the direction of the council to kind of wordsmith. But it is important to point out, as the Chief mentioned, if it is a violation of the penal code, whether they're in school or whether they're out in just the street or in their home or whatnot, a violation of the penal code, like what the Chief mentioned, is a crime. So I think that's why the word's there, and that's why you find that word in a lot of the MOUs. But we could definitely fine tune some of the language to maybe take the edge off a little, if that's the direction.
I mean, that's for the council to also consider and talk about if they choose to. But that's one of the things that kind of gets to me a bit.
Councilmember Cruz, did the subcommittee get a chance to look at this agreement?
No.
Okay. You know, I'm not sure. It doesn't sound to me like we need to rush this decision. You know, we might be better served as a council if we sent this back to the school city subcommittee for them to fine tweak this MOU before it comes forward to the council.
I tend to disagree with you, Mr. Mayor, because I think it's an opportunity for all of us to chime into this situation of the MOU and the whole concept of the SRO too.
Well, I understand at some point you're absolutely right, but the beginning and the crafting of the document, I would think the heavy lifting would be done at the subcommittee level. And then the subcommittee brings it forward and says, we like this, please weigh in on it.
Well,
as opposed to asking the chief questions now that I'm not so sure shouldn't be answered, some of them by school board members.
But the thing is that this was only worked between the superintendent and the chief. The rest of us didn't have access to any of this information.
Well, that's why I'm saying it should go back down to the subcommittee for you to have access to it.
I mean, I'm just talking about decriminalizing children bad behavior, you know, and things that kids normally do in high school and so on. And I do have an issue with this.
Okay. Well, let me take you up on your offer of letting another council member go and then coming back to you.
Okay.
Is that all right with you?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Councilmember Brigham, did you have your hand up on this?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that, I know that the public doesn't always get to read everything in here, but I want to make sure that I'm totally clear on this. The cost to the city would be every year about maybe $185,000. And the school district has agreed, when they say they agreed to pay a portion of the salary, that means they're only contributing $20,000 per year, and the city is contributing like $180,000. Is that correct?
That would be correct.
Wowza.
Well, I think the thing you have to remember, though, Councilmember Brigham, is proportionately who uses the services of that officer more, the school district or the city. When they're not functioning as a school resource officer, they're a patrolman. As a matter of fact, they're a patrolman first. If there's a situation, they leave the school and they come handle that situation. So,
well, it's my understanding from reading this that it's like a full-time job. We're talking about 5 days a week for the whole, and I'm assuming they would float from the high school to Washington School to Jefferson School. That's just my assumption, but that's, maybe a 30, 35 hour a week job right there. And am I understanding that correctly, Chief?
Yes, they would be, if in the ideal circumstances, it would be a full-time position, and it would be at the campuses. And, you know, I want to just add something that, you know, we respond there regardless if we have an SRO or not. We get called.
I lost you. I can't hear him.
Can anybody hear me?
Yeah,
Got
I can
you
hear
now.
you, Chief.
Okay. I just want to add to what you were saying. We respond there regardless if there's an SRO or not. We handle anything that we're called there for. And typically that comes without any kind of contribution from the school from a financial standpoint. Here, they've agreed to offer a financial portion of this to have our camp officer there. You know, as I said, we respond there regardless to handle anything. And typically that doesn't come with any kind of reimbursement from the school.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. But in reading through this, it made me think that this was actually a full-time job for an officer, you know, 35, 40 hours a week, that they can, sure, I mean, if there would be a shooting downtown or a robbery, they could leave the school and go down there, but their primary job is going to be at the schools pretty much full-time for one officer.
So yes, until a certain time of the afternoon, they come back on patrol for the remaining 2 hours once school's out. And then every spring break, Christmas break, summer break, that officer is brought back to the patrol level. So it's just during school sessions, while school's in session.
So the 203,000 that I'm seeing that it would cost the city, basically right around 200,000, is that the full cost or just the cost of that officer while you figure they're going to be at the school?
That's not based on why they're going to be at the school. That would be what we call a floated rate, which would be benefits and everything else for a police officer.
Has it ever been discussed that they could use not necessarily private security, but a different type of person that wasn't a police officer?
That might very well be a question for the school board and something that's addressed during a subcommittee meeting to them. I have not had those conversations with them.
I was just curious. I know some schools do not use police officers. They use basically private security that's there so many hours a day, and it's certainly a lot less money than $203,000. But I was just curious as to whether or not that, I just want the public to be aware of the fact that this is a sizable expense and they're not even in session. So I'm not sure why we're even discussing it right now.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Bagby?
Oh, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I think, you know, a lot of good points have been brought up, but, you know, I believe that, you know, considering the age of the agreement, that it goes back to 1994, Councilmember Cruz and Councilmember Burgum's questions are very valid. I mean, considering that this agreement is older than any of the kids who are going to school there, and it might even be older than some of the teachers and people working there, I found it very antiquated. And something that I would want to know the answer to, which Councilmember Cruz brought up, which is, you know, this is a very old agreement. What kind of community outreach has the school board done to check in with people about, you know, what they expect from an SRO, what they expect, especially in light of the fact that so many other districts in Sonoma County are having this conversation right now about whether or not they should even have one, an SRO on campus. And a lot of them have eliminated it in favor of other programs like counseling and other resources that are readily available. So, you know, I think that it certainly bears further discussion at the subcommittee level, but my main concern tonight is really the financial and the staffing aspect of this item. You know, when the chief tells me that, when he gives a description of the staffing levels that we're on at, that gives me serious pause. When we're talking about the budget shortfalls that we're going to see likely next year, that gives me serious pause. When I look at the fact that the school board that had the school district, which has, you know, I know we have other sources of revenue, but they have a district, they have a tax base that is far larger than ours is. And they're only underwriting this item to the tune of $20,000. I have an issue with that for the taxpayers within the city limits. In addition to that, I think we have some serious problems. We have to make sure that Measure R gets renewed, because the fact is if we lose that funding, there goes our funding for a dispatcher and an officer and potentially body cameras and everything else. So I don't think that this is the time to, I don't think that we can make a decision that will have the fiscal impact on our police budget until we know the outcome of the election where Measure R is concerned. So I would support moving this item beyond the election so we know where we stand financially and budgetarily for the coming years.
Thank you, and I have to agree with you, and I think it should go back to the subcommittee to have it all hashed out. I want to give the co-chair, Vice Mayor Turner, a chance to share with us his thoughts. Jason?
Thank you. So, you know, when the school board had this dialogue with us at our subcommittee level, the point of view and the dynamic of the conversation was the school board was asking us to purvey a service. They wanted the city to be able to provide a school resource officer. And the more I saw the report from the chief, it's just not something that we can do. I think, in my opinion, one of the common missteps of management of any level is to assume that people can just work harder to make up the deficits that are created. So Chief, you brought up challenges, and I want to talk about that a little bit. One of the challenges I found very intriguing in your report, I'd ask you to give a little bit more detail on, is you talked about the recent passing of an ordinance by the County of Sonoma regarding masking and other things. I'd like to hear your point of view on that. I'd like to hear why that has become a challenge. And I'd like to know the scope in which you are being asked to participate in enforcing that ordinance by the County of Sonoma.
Okay, so we'll start with, I'm sure everybody's aware that it passed, and what it ultimately means is because of where we stand with COVID and the spike, it's really a way to really start making a difference on those that are, I would say, blatantly violating orders and unable to get control of it. So instead of looking at it from a criminal aspect, looking at it from a civil aspect, where monetarily it becomes more of a factor. So you have from a business standpoint where it could be as little as 1,000, second offense at 5,000, and ultimately after that as high as 10,000. You know, so it's a very serious matter. What it means for Cloverdale is we have to kind of change the way we're doing business. I've already had to establish a protocol because the county has a hotline to take tips, anonymous tips about businesses that are not adhering to the order, or individuals, like if they're playing soccer games out on a park and they're not masked, right? These tips are going to come into this hotline, and ultimately they're going to end up in Cloverdale as well. And we have to be able to readily respond and have an ability to address those issues. And it is going to, if you've looked at the Press Democrat in I think the 3 days since they started, they had 450 tips into that hotline. So, and I can only see that increasing from there. So you can imagine what that puts on. And here in Cloverdale, it's going to be the police department ultimately that responds to that, with the assistance with the community development director on the business aspect of it. But it's really going to start increasing what we have to do to get out there and educate people. And I hope everybody, you know, kind of adheres to the order a little bit more so we don't have to move to that level of enforcement. But it is going to create an impact on us in having to respond to these tips and or really taking the enforcement a lot more serious.
Another question I have regarding that, or the challenges that you faced, is the main theme I saw from the MOU really pertained to the officer being present on campus. It had dialogue regarding supporting after-school programs. It had dialogue about supporting school sporting events. There was even little bits of dialogue about just improving the relationship or the perception between young adults and growing children and law enforcement. Can you please, for my benefit, share your concerns about what that could look like in a distance learning environment?
So that's really where the challenge becomes, because a lot of those factors that you're trying to build those relationships with, and I discussed that visibility and what it means to an elementary school to have an officer in uniform eating lunch with them or being visible with them or interacting with them, up into the point of high school, maybe going out on their lunch break and shooting hoops with them. There's an enormous amount of positive actions that come out of that. And I speak from experience of when I was an SRO officer and the times that I did it, and the great benefit both for the police department and the school for having that. When you don't have that on-campus instruction, you are really removing what I think is the most vital part of an SRO. The other parts that are afforded in that is when you do have sporting events and we're there and we're present and we're being actively, supporting those programs. Dances, if you will. These things become challenges, and I think it ultimately would end up with some kind of idea that isn't necessarily reasonable, meaning checking in at people's homes and ensuring kids are doing homework. I'm not sure we have that legal authority to even do that. So, what it really comes down to is what's left for an SRO to do when you're dealing with a distance learning environment. Most of all the elements of the SRO won't be in existence.
Thank you, Chief. My last question, and I'll turn it over to my colleagues, and I think ultimately public comment, or anyway, I digress. I'll be done. Is where was I going with this? Now I got myself distracted. Hold on just a second, it'll come right back to me. So without going into details, because it's proprietary information about your personnel and issues that personnel may be having in regards to injuries and stuff like that, I'd like you to offer just a high-level prediction, understanding that we did not ask you to come prepared with statistics. So I want you to know that I understand that. But what I'd like from you, if I may, is just a high-level idea of, based on your current staffing levels, there is language in the MOU that if staffing becomes a shortage, the SRO will be then returned to a full patrol officer for the duration of the time that there is a shortage in staffing. And what I'm asking you to predict without a crystal ball is, under the current staffing levels that you have, how often do you anticipate having to pull the school resource officer away from that assigned duty?
If that were to be the case, it would be irregular.
So where I'm having concerns is, they're asking us for a service. It would be irresponsible of us to offer a service that we cannot fulfill. And what I'm hearing from you is we cannot fulfill this service. Am I understanding that correctly, Chief?
Yes, and I believe I mentioned that in my verbal report earlier, that at this time, I did not feel it was in the best interest of the city to do that.
Thank you for your time, Chief. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you, Chief. Councilmember Cruz, why don't we go ahead and try and wrap this up? I think we're all pretty much in agreement that we're going to take no action on this evening per Councilmember Babby's suggestion. We're going to kick the can down the road a little bit and give it back to the subcommittee. But Councilmember Cruz, please finish up here.
Yes, it's a follow-up to Jason's question. If the officers are called away from their duty, does that mean that the school can also start deducting how much they have to pay? I'm always also concerned about the budget and the numbers.
So there's no language in there. Part of the language addresses that may be an option, and the school would have to agree to that option, that if the officers to come out, that doesn't change any parameters of what the school's obligation is financially. It's the language is in there that says, hey, in these events that we come up short because of staffing, we may have to pull them back. But there's no language in there, and the school would certainly have to accept and understand by agreeing to that MOU that that's what that's intended for.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. We done, Councilmember Cruz?
Yes, I think many other things can be discussed down the road.
Thank you. At this point in time, I'd like to open it up to public comment. If there's anyone here in the Performing Arts Center that would like to discuss this item, the draft MOU between the City of Cloverdale and the Unified School District. Anyone? Seeing no one. Irene, do we have anyone in the virtual waiting room?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, we have 2 hands raised, and I will begin with Shirley Davis.
Ms. Davis?
Hi, yes. I'd like to plug into your ear another option that you can have on your campus. I listened to the video from the last subcommittee meeting, and one of the things that was brought out, the interests and concerns, was vaping and the use of drugs. So I am a retired community health worker, and I went to a resource, and this is DAC. And DAC is a drug abuse alternative center. And I talked to the person there, and I told her what the situation was. Would she come to the campus and offer some counseling? And she said she would love to come to Cloverdale. And if you have a moment, I'd like to read to you just a little bit of what she provides, if that's okay.
You have 2 minutes left, so please go ahead.
Okay. We provide services for 9 schools in Sonoma County. And she's at a different school each day of the week. For example, she was at Sonoma Valley High School every Wednesday. She would get referrals for youth who have gotten into trouble at school, at home, or in the community. And some youth are referred by their parents, while others just want to have extra support themselves. I would then meet with the youth for an intake and follow up with 2 more individual appointments, which would be an assessment session and a treatment planning session. We ask all of our youth that are in our program to come up with 3 goals to be reached while they are in our adolescent treatment program. All youth enrolled in the treatment with DAC are required to attend a minimum of 12 group sessions. The group is the treatment. Groups can happen during school, at lunch, or after school. We are hoping to offer the same services to telehealth this school year. I hope this helps. Feel free to reach out anytime. She's willing to have a Zoom conference with the subcommittee. And I would just like to have somebody, or just have the subcommittee at least give some time for this, to consider this, because this is a service that probably will not cost anything. And it really does have that professionalism that deals with teens who are in this type of trouble. And I'm going to say they do the speak. So anyway, I highly recommend this, and I'm hoping that the subcommittee will let this youth counselor talk with him and see if this is something viable for Cloverdale, especially if she's really wanting to come up here.
Thank you, Shirley. And I would strongly suggest that you bring that to the school board. It seems to me that they would have to be on board with that, of course. And I'm sure the subcommittee would love to have her come up, assuming that there's some interest on behalf of the school. And you might just want to contact the superintendent of schools as opposed to the whole board.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Irene, is there anyone else?
We have Mark Lucetti.
Please go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me? Thank you. First of all, Mark Lucetti, I've been in the district for about 20 years. I'm the principal at the middle school. My first 15 years was at the high school. And I'd just like to say we used to use DAC, and it was a very effective program. DAC discontinued for a number of years, and that's why we quit using it. So I'm glad to hear it's coming back, and I will pass that along to my superintendent, definitely. So thank you for that. I'd just like to say from 2012 to 2016, I was in an administrative role at the high school as the assistant principal. And poor Officer Baker, who was our SRO at that time, I wore that guy out. He was so valuable, and I don't have numbers in front of me, but I've run these numbers before when I was there, and I can tell you suspensions went down, truancy went down, violence went down, drug abuse went down. And I totally understand the budgetary constraints, and I respect that because we're all facing them. Officer Ferguson, I totally understand, your staffing issues. And I also kind of agree during distance learning, it would be very hard for the SRO to conduct the duties that they normally do. But one reason I think those numbers also went down was not just because we had the officer on campus, it was because he was doing the DARE and the great programs with the younger kids. And as those kids moved up through the ranks, as Chief Ferguson said, that relationship piece was invaluable between the police officers and the police department and the kids. That respect level was really increased in that area. And I totally agree, he did that. He had lunch with the kids. He visited with the kids. He asked them a lot of questions. To Councilmember Cruz's point, I have talked to many parents, I don't have numbers in front of me, that tell me we need to get an SRO. We just need that. I hear that weekly. And when you talk about, when we talked about the word crime and you said these are things high schoolers do, when I think of that, I'm thinking, selling drugs to other kids that's making them very sick, to the point where maybe parents pull their kids out of our schools and take them to other places. So then we have an ADA issue as well. And then when you talk about bringing outside officers or security in as well, I would say Cloverdale's a family. We're all a family. The teachers are a family. We all attend events. The students are, the parents are, and so are the police. And it's different, I think, in a bigger city, hiring a security person that nobody knows. But I think there's real value to having a Cloverdale officer that comes in that these students see in town, they see on the street, they visit with, and that respect is just, you can't replace that respect. So I understand right now with distance learning that maybe this, as somebody said, needs to get kicked down the road. I totally respect that. But it's my sincere hope that down the road that this is something we take very serious, because I can tell you I live this and it made a huge difference with kids, education, and community. And I know I have 9 seconds, but I'd also like to say the officers make a lot of trips to the high school now, or in the last 4 years, that they didn't make before. So there's also a real cost involved with that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mark?
Yeah.
You can share with us.
What's that?
Did you have something to say to this, to the city council?
Oh, you didn't hear anything I said?
I'm sorry, Mark, your name popped up on my screen again. I appreciate your comments.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was dropping my hand.
I'm getting out of my realm here, and I usually just say, Marta, I'm sorry, I just usually say, Irene, is there anyone else?
No, Mayor, not at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, members of the council, if I can.
Please.
All right, thank you. I think, turn my audio.
I'll take over, David.
I think what you've heard today is that there is tremendous interest in developing a MOU for a school resource officer that's more robust than the existing cooperative agreement that we have, that better defines the roles and responsibilities. But likewise, you've also heard from our chief that there are currently staffing concerns. And as we know, there are also fiscal concerns relative to our budget, and particularly the economic impact associated with COVID. As indicated in the staff report, we're experiencing an economic impact that's roughly about $1 million on our general fund, which is significant and which is the largest funding source for our police department. But we recognize that there is a commitment to an interest in moving forward in terms of further review of the MOU. My recommendation in terms of next steps would be to direct staff to bring the draft MOU back to the Joint City School Subcommittee to really look at what are some alternatives to fulfill some of the underlying goals, including looking at the opportunity for bringing in youth counseling to support and address some of the vaping issues and other issues. Also, and I want to give a shout out to former mayor and council member Joe Paula. He did considerable work to pursue how we might fund the school resource officer, and I think to build on the work effort that he had worked so diligently on is to look at pursuing funding, whether it be grant funding or other alternative funding to help support the cost. Also, there's certainly opportunities to look at funding through the Department of Justice, and see if that's an opportunity for us to help offset the cost. In addition, I think there are some models out there that we can look at and determine if there are some best practices that we might add to our existing draft MOU and address some of the issues that I think Council Member Cruz astutely pointed out, and to be able to wrap those into an MOU for further consideration by the Joint City Schools Subcommittee. And then last but not least, and I think it was raised by City Attorney, that there's also an opportunity for additional legal review. So to fine tune again some of the language within the MOU to make sure that it's legally adequate. And then I think it's also just important to note that a lot of this work went into the development of the MOU was based on the collaborative working relationship between Chief Ferguson and the former Superintendent Jeremy Decker, and I applaud them for the great work they've done to bring forward this draft MOU. We now have a new superintendent on board, and I think this represents an opportunity if we kind of take a pause at this particular point in time for the chief to work collaboratively with our new superintendent and garner her input on what she sees are appropriate roles for a school resource officer, and to reflect that in the MOU. So I think there is a path forward. I think what we're hearing from council is that right now, given the timing and the economic impacts, that we want to do a pause on this MOU, and it might be appropriate with there being distance learning more than likely being implemented through the end of this calendar year, that we look at maybe bringing this back sometime in next calendar year in 2021.
Thank you, David. That sounds good. Councilmember Turner, you had a comment?
Yeah, I was really intrigued by the testimony from Mark Luchetti.
Yeah.
And if he can still hear me, I'd like to speak with you more about it. So my phone number and stuff's on the city website. I'm sorry, it's so informal, but if you can hear me, I'd like to speak to you more about that.
Thank you. Council members.
You muted yourself, Gus.
Hey, I'm always on mute. So if I'm hearing everyone correctly, we're going to go with option number 3, which is to not recommend at this time and send it to a subcommittee for further discussion. Has everyone had their say on this, council members? Okay, Councilmember Cruz, are you leaving the meeting? You requested to leave?
I'm gonna try to stay through the presentation.
Okay, well, just make sure you.
I'll let you know.
Yeah, you can just send a chat over to Irene so she'll know.
Okay.
And I hope you feel better.
Thank you very much.
Next item, we're going to move it up to proclamations and presentations. A presentation by Charities of Santa Rosa on the California for All Emergency Preparedness campaign, also known as LIFTOS. I think I said that right, California. And David, is that your item or?
Yes. We're delighted to have a representative to provide a PowerPoint presentation on referred to as LIFTOS California.
You're muted, David.
Thank you. I was just noting that we are delighted to have Amy Holter here to provide us a presentation on a program referred to as Listos California. This is a program that was implemented by the governor to support emergency preparedness within the state, and locally, Catholic Charities was chosen as the organization to help implement the campaign for Napa and Sonoma County. So without further ado, I'd just like to turn it over to Miss Amy Holter, and she'll give us an overview on Listos California.
Thank you. Amy, welcome.
Thank you very much. Do you have my presentation, or should I share my screen?
If you can share your screen, that would be great.
Okay. Sorry, 1 second. Here we go. Okay, can everyone see that? Yes, okay, great. Thank you so much for having me tonight. I'm Amy Holter. I'm the Director of Integrative Programs at Catholic Charities of the Diocese of Santa Rosa. So last year, sorry, dog is impatient. Last year, Catholic Charities received, was one of a few nonprofits across California to receive an investment in disaster preparedness. And so let me move to the next slide. Sorry, I thought the presentation was going to be there. I apologize. Here we go. So 24 counties in the state were awarded this funding. And I'd like to just start by thanking council members Marta Cruz and Melanie Bagby for communicating with us and supporting us in making sure that these services get to Cloverdale residents. So our target populations for this disaster preparedness work we're really focused on reaching the most vulnerable. And we're doing that through partner agencies, as well as, of course, through our current clients. So the core teachings of this program are 5 essential steps. So there's been a lot of research done that really simplifying disaster preparedness makes it much more likely that people will actually take these actions. So the first is to get alerts. The second is to make a plan. The third is to pack a go bag. The fourth is to build a stay box. And the fifth is to help friends and neighbors. And so there are 2 different training modules available. So you can take one that's just 15 minutes, so very easy to fit into your day. You can also take an hour-long training, and then there are full Listos trainings for 8 hours or more that we're not currently doing anymore due to COVID-19. But we have these trainings available online right now every single day of the work week, so 5 days a week in both English and Spanish. So these are the numbers that we've reached to date in Sonoma and Napa counties. So we've been engaging a lot of people and also reaching people with informational materials. So for our strategies for engagement, we have 3. So the first is just the broad outreach, radio, billboard, social media. And then, as I mentioned before, we have these online trainings that anyone is welcome to take. And then to really reach the most vulnerable, those people that are not able to engage via social media, we have actually still doing in-person trainings with people at their job sites. So whether that's in vineyards or any other sort of job site. So we're really reaching out to people who can put us in touch with those folks who may not be able to get the information in any other way. So, and then this is just more information about how we're partnering with other agencies. And our staff is working with the Sonoma County COAD and the Emergency Operations Center to make sure that we're getting all this information out to the public. And then one of the other things that we're trying to do, because this funding is going to be ending in December. And so one of the big things we're trying to do is to build a core of volunteers that can continue this work past the end date of the grant. So we're definitely interested in building that volunteer network in Cloverdale as well. So these are some of our Sonoma County partners. I know that Alma Bowen from Nuestra Comunidad has already done quite a bit of work in Cloverdale and looks forward to continuing to do so. These are some of our Napa County partners. And then one of the big things that we always offer through Catholic Charities is that anytime we're doing outreach not only for that specific topic, which of course right now is disaster preparedness, but we're also doing outreach for our food distributions and our benefit enrollment and all of the other wraparound services that we provide. And while we're on the subject of food distributions, Catholic Charities will actually be starting a new distribution in Cloverdale. So that will be on August 20th. It'll happen every third Thursday of the month at 10 a.m. at the Senior Center. Okay, so I definitely raced through that. So I don't know if there are any questions.
Council members, Monica, go ahead. You have a question for Amy?
Yes, Amy, it is very important to build that big, strong volunteer segment. And that's one of the things that we need in Cloverdale, because not all the vulnerable community is available on a weekday at 10 o'clock in the morning. So it's very important that we have a group of volunteers so that we can offer alternative dates and times for the people. And I really thank you for all that you have done for us in Cloverdale. And, until I was ill, I was distributing meals, but that continues. And it grew from 15 to 60. And there could still be very many more people on that distribution list. So it's very important. And I really thank you for keeping us within the realm of activities. There's not a cliff after Hillsburg. There is Cloverdale.
Thank you, Marta. Council members, anyone else have questions?
Quick
yes.
question, Gus. Yeah, Amy, could you kind of, talk about how we can utilize these services, especially where Alma is concerned? Because we already have the relationship with her.
Yeah, absolutely. We are definitely interested in learning more. If you have contacts for us, for people who might be interested in these sort of tailgate trainings or in-person training, definitely as many contacts in that area as possible is really useful. In addition to the scheduled online trainings, so there are scheduled online trainings every single workday in English and Spanish. But in addition to those scheduled trainings, we are also providing specified trainings that are tailored to an individual group. So if you have, if there's a business that wants their team to get a preparedness training together, privately, then we would definitely be happy to set those up.
Thank you. I think it would be really great for the chamber to get involved with this. And then also, I'm sorry, I didn't see the emails racing back and forth. Are you going to be able to join us tomorrow at the Disaster Preparedness Steering Committee meeting?
Yes, I'm definitely going to try. I will probably be there at least for the first 30 minutes. And then Nathan Gilfenbaum, who runs this program, will be there for the full time.
Oh, great. All right. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Amy, a quick question, and I'm going to ask Mary Ann Brigham to jump in here and help me with this. But before the Covert 19, every Tuesday, there used to be a little gathering over at St. Pete's. And Mike from Catholic Charities was there. And I haven't seen him in a while, but is he still doing outreach here in Cloverdale?
I'm not sure about that. I just started in November of last year, but I will definitely follow up and see. We certainly have quite a bit of outreach that we're trying to do all over the county right now. So I will certainly follow up.
Okay. Mary Ann, do you?
No, I just have a comment on what you just asked, and that is I was talking to a few of the homeless folks they call me, but there used to be Reach for Home used to come up with food on a fairly regular basis, but they have not seen any food from Reach for Home or anyone else for quite a few weeks now. There's always the senior center And there's always a few people locally who do make sandwiches and stuff. At St. Peter's Church, they are there if you need them for a specific thing. I have phone numbers you can call. I think you all do have that. But they are not doing any food distribution there except when the food bank truck occasionally comes up there, but it's rare. So I think the senior center is the only ball game in town besides the outreach that used to be down at the river, which does not seem to exist anymore. Hasn't for, I asked and they said it's been 5 to 6 weeks, maybe more, since they've seen any food deliveries to the river.
Okay, and we're, we have a food task group, and of course homelessness task groups that we're all a part of. So I can see if I can follow up with Reach for Home as well. I know a lot of this is unfortunately funding based, different things that are having to happen with food distributions coming and going. I can't say that's what's happening in that situation, but I can try to follow up on that as well.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Please.
There's also the Friday food bank on 2nd Street, Marianne, just in case.
No, I know that. Everybody in town knows that. Okay. I'm talking about the people that used to go down to the river.
Right. And
actually distribute food down there. So there's been none of that for weeks.
Okay.
Well, if I could just say, and I'm trying not to echo here on everyone, but I know I have on occasion, I try and get over on Friday mornings over at the senior center. And I know Jim from Reach for Homes comes by with his van and he picks up food from Melanie. And I will follow up with Melanie Hall over at the senior center to see if he's still stopping by. When I was there last Friday, he was there with his van and he was loading up the meals that are prepared for delivery. So I'll follow up on that and let you know.
Yeah, it would be nice to know if Jim is picking them up and actually taking them to only certain spots or what in the river.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a problem right now, big one.
Yeah. Council members, Amy?
I'm sorry if this isn't protocol. I'm just realizing that
we have no protocol.
No.
Just go.
All right. One thing I didn't mention is that the state is actually allowing us to incorporate COVID protection protocol into all of our trainings. So there's a very specific LISTOS curriculum that we have to use, but the state is allowing us to build in COVID protection information as well. And so we are very happy to also include that in the disaster preparedness information, especially for those most vulnerable workers and things like that.
Thank you, Amy. Council members, if there's no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and thank Amy for coming, and we'll probably see you tomorrow morning, did you say?
Yes.
Okay, good. Look forward to it. And thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to open this up for public comment though first, before you leave, Amy. So if there's anyone in the audience here at CPAC that would like to comment, please step up to the podium. Irene, is there anyone in the waiting room?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, we do have a couple. And I just did want to mention that Becky Enos did submit public comment in writing, which was emailed to the council late this evening, and then will be online tomorrow as well. So we have Nicole Garcia Hinchcliffe.
Okay. Irene, why don't you just go ahead and call on the individuals in the waiting room and advise them when they can speak.
Okay. Nicole, you may go ahead now.
Okay. Hi, Nicole. So actually, serendipitously, this morning, I actually had the opportunity to meet with Anna and Jim and Jacqueline from Reach for Home. And the reason why they are not present is due to the fact that they are no longer receiving city funds. So they take it as their priorities are where the funding is available. So they are available in Healdsburg, parts of Santa Rosa, Petaluma, Cotati. They have not come to Cloverdale in quite some while. And it's really, their own funding. So for Jim to come out to the senior center to get food is his own compassion in doing so. It's not a Reach for Home motivation. So because there's no city funding towards Reach for Home, they do not have that that motivation to further have that service. So I just wanted to clarify that, and that's based on our this morning's meeting. I did want to, I mean, I guess when she went through the services, I did really want to clarify on what services were being available to our homeless community, given that this has been a big issue the last few months, and maybe even before then. Like I said, I'm new, so I am running for city council, and I'm new to all of this, and so I'm getting more involved. And so yeah, if she could clarify on defining what services she is performing for the homeless community, outside of just food distribution, I'm interested in that.
Can I answer directly? Is that okay? So thank you so much. And so this presentation was just on the disaster preparedness grant, but Catholic Charities does have, of course, a very robust homelessness services department. So we have multiple shelters, family shelter, Sam Jones Hall in Santa Rosa. And right now, because of COVID, we have a socially distanced site at the Finley Center in Santa Rosa. And also in my department is the coordinated entry program. So the coordinated entry program is how all homeless people who are interested in getting into services call coordinated entry, and that's how they begin to receive services through those programs. So there are many programs. We also have a housing counseling and homelessness prevention program that falls under my department. So for people who have lost wages or lost jobs during COVID-19, unfortunately we have quite a wait list because funding is not as prolific as it is sometimes after disaster. But we do have rental assistance, housing counseling, financial stability workshops available for people. And so I hope that helps answer your question, but there are quite a lot of services. We also have a host team, which is our homelessness outreach team that works all over Sonoma County. So they are probably a good one to reach out to as well. So I can put my email in the chat. Is that possible for this type of? I think it is. Oh, it only goes to the panelists. Okay. But if you reach out to CE, to coordinated entry, or to the host team, the outreach team, they can certainly let you know what types of services they could provide in Cloverdale for specific clients that you have in mind.
Thank you, Amy. Irene, is there anyone else in the waiting room?
No other hands are raised, Mayor.
Thank you. And Nicole, thank you for offering some public comment. I believe you and I will be meeting Friday morning at 10:30 to talk about some city issues, and I will have some information with me. The Reach for Home has really never received any funding from the city of Cloverdale, but they do receive a boatload of funding from the county. And the majority of the homeless is in the county area. So, but I'll bring you up to speed on that and have more information when we meet on Friday morning.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So in regards to the letter that came from Becky, is there an opportunity here for us to discuss where that collaboration could take place, or does it need to happen when this isn't a more agendized item?
I would think when it's a more agendized item. Okay. David, what are your feelings on that?
There was correspondence received by Rebecca Enos. It was directed at this item on the agenda. I think council has the authority to pick up that correspondence under this agenda item.
So I'm just curious, And maybe David, you could elaborate, because her email had a tone as if certain things were kind of assumed, like what that collaboration would look like, and whether there's a fiscal responsibility involved with that or anything. So what would it mean for Health Action Group of Cloverdale to get involved and partner in this? And Amy, that could be directed towards you too. I'm just not sure.
If I can, I'll start, and Amy, feel welcome to join me in this discussion. I think it would start with an invitation by
echo, we cannot understand. Excuse me, David.
Holter to come and provide a presentation directly to the Health Action Group, and share an overview of the program, and foster a conversation with Health Action about where there are opportunities for collaboration, and mutual goals. I'm particularly excited about our workshop tomorrow on the Cloverdale Resiliency Initiative, and discussion particularly about one of the key objectives, which is to establish a COAD, or a community organization active in disasters, because I think that ties directly into the funding that was provided to Catholic Charities for this work on emergency preparedness. And I think there's a real symbiotic opportunity for us to work together. But all that kind of ties together. I think of us as a big family in terms of trying to address the important community needs of our organization, and Catholic Charities, along with Health Action and the city and other partners, is just really going to be key to meeting the needs of our community. So I tend to think that there's a real opportunity to collaborate, and that we're not going to be necessarily stepping on each other's toes.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, well, again, Amy, thank you for coming. Council members, any other questions? And there's no one else in the public wishing to comment on this? Oh, there's one more. Okay, thank you, Irene.
Oh, there's one more commenter, but I had something, Mr. Mayor, when she's done.
Amanda, you should be able to make your comment.
Hi, this is Amanda Farrar, and I am acting as transitioning facilitator to Health Action Committee over the next few months, as Becky's stepping down from that position. And I did just want to confirm that, yes, we have been speaking with Alma, and the next Health Action, official Health Action meeting, we're coordinating for her to present. So she will be here for City of Cloverdale in order to provide information, and we'll be sending out notices for that when that occurs and is confirmed. And also to clarify, I do have been involved with the food distribution at the Senior Center on Friday, and Reach for Home has been coming the last several months. Melanie has requested additional meals from Sonoma Family Meals. And they have been taking whatever we have, whatever has been available to the river on Friday. Jim and Jacqueline Ramirez have both been showing up, taking whatever's available. We have donations sometimes, and we also have leftover prepared meals that they've been getting. And in addition to Melanie requesting extra meals, although that Sonoma Family Meals is unfortunately coming to an end. So that's not going to be available. And there's, looking into other resources. But I just wanted to let you know that, yes, we are working on getting a presentation from Listos in the next Health Action meeting.
Thank you, Amanda. Irene, anyone else?
No one else.
Councilmember Bagby, did you have a question?
Oh yeah, I just it's really more of a statement, and that is that I think we're talking about some pretty charged issues here, and I know for a fact that Reach for Home has been here in town, and they're here about 2 or 3 times a week, and I just think it's really important that we don't send out misinformation about services that are going on. City of Cloverdale has never paid for those services. That is, Reach for Home has that contract through the County of Sonoma, because that's how those services are delivered, because we don't have we don't have that department that goes through the county. So I mean, I would encourage the city manager to maybe, you know, continue to reach out to Amy with updates on resources that are available. Maybe have her check in with us like once a quarter, just so that we know what's going on, what services are available for us. But also, I think we need to reach out to Reach for Home and have them come not just once a year, but on a quarterly basis, so that they can give a report out and they can keep us up to date with what is really the work that they are doing. Because I think that we need to be operating with facts, not hearsay. So that's all I had, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Cruz?
I was just going to say, did you say me or Marta?
Go ahead, Mary Ann. You got the mic.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to say that, yes, I think communication is the big issue about what Melanie was just talking about. When they call me, and if I don't know that, then I can't tell them. And so I'm sure that Reach for Home is showing up, obviously. It's just that they don't know it. And the camps move, you know that. And so I think communication is going to be really critical, because I would love to be able to tell them how to accommodate themselves for the food. So yeah.
And I think that's a key part of the, you know, the emergency preparedness and the community resiliency that we're talking about, you know, getting us on, is that communication and that community outreach. And I think one of our main challenges, you know, as a community, and I'm hoping that Catholic Charities can also help us with this, is how do we retool and redefine what community outreach is to, you know, all levels of the community, all of our residents, all of our citizens. You know, it's in the time of COVID, I think those challenges are just, you know, we're just, no one was prepared. No one ever expects the Spanish Inquisition, and that's where we are right now. And so I think it's more important than ever to kind of stay back in touch with our partners, so that we figure out how we retool our communications. And I think that's why I'm glad Amy and someone from Catholic Charities is going to be in our steering committee meeting tomorrow morning, because I think that that's going to be a major topic of conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Councilmember Cruz?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to also inform everybody that I do know that Reach for Home is the entity working to help people with a season of sharing. And Season of Sharing is the organization that is also helping people pay rent, utilities, you know, car repairs, etc. So if anybody is in need of any funding that it's within reach, they can go ahead and contact Reach for Home. And I have been in conversations with them about several people who have applied to Season of Sharing for rental assistance and so on, because they lost their jobs due to COVID, et cetera, and so on. Thank you.
You know, I think it's really good that we have organizations like this that can help folks. And Amy, when I spoke earlier of Mike from Catholic Charities being at St. Pete's, that's one of the things he would do, is he would write a check out, not to the individual, but to the landlord or to the repair shop for the automobile. And Marta, I think it's important too that, you know, that we make sure that we don't have people that are maybe double dipping. I mean, it's nice to know who Catholic Charities is writing the check out to, and then to turn around to another group. You know, I think there needs to be some type of coordination so that we're making sure we're helping as many people as we can. Amy?
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, and we are more and more doing that. Our COVID response efforts really have grown, and our homelessness prevention efforts overall really have grown out of our experience with responding to disasters with that kind of financial assistance. And so we have developed a system, a data sharing system with organizations around the county. So we have data sharing agreements with CAP, with Corazon, with we need to reach out to Reach for Home actually, because we should be data sharing with them as well. There is plenty of need to go around. So, you know, our organizations really try to work together as much as possible. And it's not just about making sure there's not duplication of efforts, but also so that we can really kind of complete the circle for people and do external referrals to each other so that people get the best care possible. And we do, I think it's really hard to list all of the different outreach that we do and different services that we have, but very happy to communicate with the council as much as possible to keep you up to speed, especially during COVID. We're doing so much outreach around benefit enrollment and also making sure that we reach the undocumented population as well, who are not currently able to access all of the government support that some others are. So very excited to continue the conversation.
Good, thank you. Council members, members of the audience, if there's nothing else, we're going to move on. We've got a pretty big agenda still ahead of us. Councilmember Cruz, don't forget if you leave just to send a hand wave over to Irene. With that being said, Jason, did you want to?
The only thing I might request at this time, if we're done with this item, is a quick recess. I need to bit a power supply to my iPad here, otherwise I risk it dying.
You got it. Okay, let's take 5. Thank you. Over there. There should be one there. They've always got them laying around. Oh, my mic's on. announcement. When we reconvene, please.
Did I hit a button? Am I sharing a screen? No. Okay.
Okay, if everyone's ready, we're going to go ahead and reconvene. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Nobody said yes, so I guess you can't hear me. Irene, is everyone back, please?
Yes, everyone is back on except Councilmember Cruz, who is
Okay. Well, if she's feeling better and she comes back on board, please let us know. With that being said, let's go ahead and move to the consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar will be approved with one motion unless an item on the consent calendar is requested to be pulled by a member of the audience or a city council member. Council members, is there any item you'd like to pull and discuss separately?
No.
Seeing no hands. Irene, is there anyone in the audience?
No one is in the audience, but I did want to acknowledge the comments submitted by Councilmember Cruz yesterday regarding item number 3, the resolution to increase the annual student liaison scholarship.
Well, then hold off on that. We're gonna go ahead and pull that item then, and we'll have a separate discussion on that.
Okay.
Okay. So, would anyone like to offer a motion for items number 2, number 4?
I'll make a motion to approve consent calendar excluding item number 3.
I'll second.
Could we have a roll call, please?
Vice Mayor Turner,
Aye.
Councilmember Bagby,
Aye.
Councilmember Brigham,
Aye.
and Mayor Walter.
Aye. Okay, let's circle back and pick up item number 3. And Irene, why don't you go ahead and share with us what Councilmember Cruz had to say.
Thank you, Mayor. So she just asked for a minor correction for the 5th whereas in the resolution on line 6 to be amended as if they do not interfere or interrupt class schedules.
Okay. All right. Would someone like to make a motion to approve that as amended?
Make a motion to approve item number 3 as amended.
Second, is there?
I'll second.
Okay. Irene, can we have a quick roll call?
Councilmember Bagby,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Turner,
Aye.
Councilmember Brigham,
Aye.
and Mayor Walter.
Aye. Okay, the next item is, let me see where I am here. Communications, and there is a communication from Reese Foxen regarding the 3rd Street Bridge and creek maintenance. So, any response to that, David?
Mayor, council members, the communication was requested to be added to the agenda by council member Bagby. The item is a petition regarding maintenance activities by the city under 3rd Street Bridge. I do want to note, there was none included in the agenda, that there was considerable correspondence between council member Cruz and Ms. Reese Foxen relative to the city's maintenance practices by Public Works within the area. I would ask that our city engineer, Mark Rinkle, address any questions that council may have about that correspondence. It is a petition relative to the city, directed to the city to increase maintenance activities under the 3rd Street Bridge.
Okay. Before you
first thing I'd like to address is
I still see Councilmember Cruz's name up on the participants. For the record, is she present?
No, I don't believe she is. She did excuse herself, so I'll remove her.
Jose, how do we do we handle that differently?
No, she did say she was excusing herself, so she is absent. Even though her name's there, she's not participating. Her camera's off and she is on mute, so she could definitely be placed in the other room, Irene, just to avoid any confusion.
So she'd be in the guest room.
Yes, that could definitely that works. That way it avoids any confusion, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Mark, please go ahead.
Yeah, just a point of clarification. I've got here before you, Irene is screen sharing. This is a bridge. Irene, want to go down a little bit more? This is a culvert. So what we're speaking about is at the 3rd Street. It's not a bridge, it's technically a culvert. And so I just want to clear that up first. Irene, you can go to the next page. So this is just to give you an overview of what the crossing looks like. I'm referring to it as a crossing, not a bridge, because it's not a bridge. Again, city staff members go into this area once a year towards the fall before the winter rains, a limited window because Fish and Wildlife gives us a permit to get in there. And we're limited to basically end of August, sometimes mid-September, up to October 15th. And it depends on if the creek is wet and whether birds are nesting. We hire a biologist in August to go out and assess and let us know when's the optimal time to get in there. Typically, we have the adult supervised crew go in there to help clean out basically the large items. Nothing, no fine sediments or anything like that because there's no point. That's the bottom of the creek. So we remove items that could possibly cause a debris dam. So we're just mitigating for winter flows. Other than that, there's not much else we do to that. The bridge, quote, the bridge is in perfect shape. There's nothing wrong with it. There's no risk of collapse. It is just a culvert. And I've addressed this with Ms. Reeson on a couple occasions. And I know what Eric Jansen, the senior tech, has responded to her via email with a similar information. So I don't know what else further to discuss on this topic other than it's scheduled. Once I went up there last week, the creek is still wet, so we're not going to get in there probably till September at some point. And again, we're not going to have access to the support that we get from the Bureau of Prisons. So we're going to go in there and it'd be all hands on deck. Try to remove the larger items, just to avoid any debris dams, to mitigate any possibilities of debris dams forming at that location. But there will be minor flooding. Ideally, this creek shouldn't have been developed right up to it. As you can see that one picture there on the lower right, the house is right up against the creek. So, not ideal, obviously, but these homes were put there many, many generations ago. So it is what it is. And again, the cleaning of the creeks, both upstream and downstream, and that's those two lower photos, that's the responsibility of the homeowners or the property owners at those locations. The city does not go into that creek and does not clean out all that, vegetation. And likewise, we're restricted from going down there anyways because that is habitat. Even though it looks like just overgrowth, it is habitat. And so if you go to the final screen, Irene, final page, please. So I just wanted to kind of give you an aerial view of where the culvert is in relation to the property and the property owners. So you can see the majority of that culvert and the surrounding areas is private property. There's very little that's actually on the city side. There may be a right of way, I have not found it, but Kings Court is a private drive. They maintain it. So really the city is limited to just cleaning out under the culvert, and that's it. That's all we do. We don't do anything more than that. Technically, it's all private property. And so that's kind of the information we've been sharing with the residents there. I know the petition is asking for a replacement of the culvert. I don't see a need for replacement of the culvert. The crossing itself is in fine shape. She complained about a car had collapsed and a car fell in it. After further research, I found out that it was a water leak that created kind of like a small sinkhole, and it was further, it was further west. It was nowhere near the actual culvert crossing. So again, there's no need for replacement. When this was put in, it was probably put in when Kings Valley development was put in. They did that improvement, and again, the city just maintains underneath it once a year, typically late fall before winter rains.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, if there's any questions, by all means, shoot them.
Irene, could you go back up to the picture of the culvert? Yeah, right. That's the culvert right there, Mark?
No, that is an example of a culvert crossing. This is not that particular culvert. It's just too overgrown right now to get a good picture of it. So okay. I just wanted to provide you how this crossing has been built up. Is basically a CMP pipe with a roadway built over it.
Gotcha. Okay. I just and thank you for reiterating the fact that that the city is responsible from one end to the other end of the culvert. And council members, any other questions on this or comments? Councilmember Bagby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'll lower my hand now. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that this came before the council, because there just seemed to be a lot of back and forth, and I'm glad to hear that there has been community outreach. I was a little concerned earlier. I think the characterization of this being one letter from one resident. I was a little concerned about that. There are at least 5 or 6 households that are signatories, and it's not a petition, it's a letter saying that hey, we know COVID's going on, we know you guys are overburdened, but we want to make, for that reason, we want to make sure we're planning ahead and that we have a plan, because we know that the con crews are not going to be available. And I think they're just asking for a timeline. And I think this just really underscores that need for, those community dashboards that kind of tell people where we are, on projects, because I think that would have clarified it a lot sooner. But I just was wondering if the city engineer could just kind of bring us up to date on, what communication has been going on to the neighbors regarding what the plan is and what the timetable is, and how you're doing that outreach right now.
Yeah, we've written to Reese Foxen on 2 occasions. Councilmember Cruz requested copies of those communications, so she has those. And then also I went out there and met her at the location and spoke with her for a while, explaining what we do. So in terms of outreach, if she's the spokesperson for this group, they've gotten the information. If she's not the spokesperson, then maybe we send individual letters to each of them, but they're just signing a letter, and I don't have.
I think that's probably a good idea. I mean, I would characterize Reese as more like a ringleader than a spokesperson, just with my experience. So, but considering the fact that, that Amber and Fred are up there, and that, the Hertzkeys are up there, and that they're dependent on this. I just, want to make sure, all the other signatories of the letter. And that's actually, I think it's really encouraging that this is exactly what we're asking neighbors to do, right? Is come together and organize and prepare for a disaster or mitigation. This is exactly what we are encouraging residents of Cloverdale to do. So, I like it. I think it's a positive. So I think it's necessary to reach out to all of them and make sure that they know that we hear them. This is the plan. This is what we're going to do. And that this is what we're obligated to do. And then, hey, homeowners, this is what you're obligated to do. That's out of our, that's out of our reach. So just so that everybody's clear and we know what our expectations are, especially in this time of COVID, when if they do want to hire somebody to, work on their property, they're going to need lead time to make those arrangements. So,
right. Yeah, we've been very consistent in our messaging. We've never deviated from this plan. This plan has been in effect for several years, way before I got here. It's a routine, and again, the permit permits us to go in for specific a specific window. And Kings Valley, the management there is well aware of our annual plan, but I'll track down, if I can, the individuals who signed off on this and try to see if I can't get them individual communications of some sort.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd like to see it just be, either an item or until it's done, or a standing item on the Public Works Subcommittee meeting, so that if anybody needs to bring up an issue, that it's just being monitored by the subcommittee. Is that okay, Mr. Mayor?
Marta's not here, who chairs that, but as the co-chair, I'm happy to see it come on there just till we see it through. It sounds like we have a reasonable timeline. It won't live on the agenda forever. We check it off as done and we carry on to the next one.
Thank you. Council members, is there anything else on this item? Irene, are there members of the public that would like to chime in on this?
No hands are raised, Mayor.
Okay. Then why don't we move on to the next item, which is item number 6, resolution approving a conditional use permit and for the first reading by title only in ordinance prezoning approximately 4.55 acres of developed land located at 28243 and 28277 Old Redwood Highway, generally referred to as Payless Storage Annexation and Prezoning Project to the General Industrial M1 zoning code. And this item, I guess, is, David, yours?
I can handle this one, Mayor. Mayor, council members, this is a proposed adoption of a resolution and introduction of an ordinance for pre-zoning of the Payless storage facility located at the address you just indicated. Just a little background, you may remember back in February, we brought a resolution authorizing the submittal of a pre-zoning and annexation for this project. Since that time, the Planning Commission reviewed the project in June and adopted a resolution recommending approval of the project to the council. At the February meeting, you may have discussed, you may recall we discussed the fact that there were some outstanding code enforcement issues out there with the County of Sonoma, with Mr. Weiss and the Payless storage. I'm happy to report that those have all been cleared up with the county, and so those are resolved. Also, I'm happy to report that both our building inspector and the fire district have conducted inspections after the February meeting about 2 months ago, and they did not find any immediate health or safety issues. Everything's not perfect, but they didn't see anything that was of any concern. Mr. Weiss has indicated that he's interested in some improvements in the future, and if this project ultimately gets annexed into the city, we would be handling that through our process. So if the resolution and ordinance is introduced, if the resolution is adopted and the ordinance is introduced, it'll allow Mr. Weiss to go to the county, Sonoma County LAFCO, and finish up his annexation process. If it does get introduced, we'll have on the next council meeting the second reading of the ordinance, and that would be on the consent calendar. So that concludes the presentation. I know Rafael is out there too. He's been doing all the hard work on this, and let us know if you have any questions.
Thank you. Council members, do we have any questions at this point?
No.
Mayor, council members, also just want to note that Mr. Weiss is a participant in the Zoom meeting, and if you're so inclined, you're more than welcome to invite him to comment. Well, I think he may have just left.
Thank you, David. Council members, if there's no questions, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to the public. Irene, do we have anyone waiting?
No hands are raised, Mayor, but Mr. Weiss is joining us as a panelist if you have direct questions.
Okay. Mr. Weiss, would you like to add any comments to this?
No, not really. I think we've kind of discussed it for a long time, and I think we're pretty much ready to go forward.
Okay. Well, council member, I see no questions from you. I see no questions from the public. So there is a resolution. If someone would like to offer that resolution by title only.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to offer the resolution, and just to wrap it up, this is something that's been before the council and the planning commission and the council again, and I just want to thank staff for all of their hard work on this. I know it's not always easy to bring a county property into the city, and I'm pleased that they are coming into within the city limits. I want to welcome them, and it's this annexation is really in line with our economic development goals and our interest in maintaining our industrial and job space. So I think it's a win-win. So I just want to tell Mr. Weiss and his family welcome. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
When we're ready, I'll be happy to offer it by title
Go
only.
right ahead, please. Vice Mayor
Right.
Turner.
Melanie, I really apologize. I know you were going to offer the motion, but you intrigued me with a question. Do you mind?
Not up to me.
Kevin, Jose, I have a quick question. I'm seeing here that it'll be zoned as industrial and they'll be annexed into the city of Cloverdale. Can you please comment how the right to industry ordinance will apply to this?
Great question, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Certainly, I can answer that. Well, what it really affects is the Baumgardner Ranch. And so the Baumgardner Ranch would be subject to the right to industry because it's within 300 feet. We've written a condition in the Baumgardner Ranch approvals that they have to conform with the right to industry, which means they're going to have to inform everybody who's living in the future homes there what's across the creek from them or the drainage swale, and follow the disclosure procedures.
So we had written into the ordinance kind of a grace period to ensure that people operating in industry were operating appropriately before those protections were put in place. Would Payless be grandfathered under the circumstances that they've been operating in good faith to date?
I would think so. They've been there more than 2 years. We had the 2-year grace period. They've been there longer than that. So I would think that Baumgardner would have to follow the procedure and that they would be grandfathered.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Melanie.
And just a quick comment, as far as Kevin, I think it's also folks that are like the residential that are moving to a place or starting to develop where there's industry next to it. And that's why you're right. Currently the Payless, this property is there already. So Kevin described it perfectly, where really the notices would be going to all the residential that would be coming hopefully if the other project goes forward.
Okay, thank you, Jose. Councilmember Bagby, were you going to offer that resolution?
I'd be happy to. City of Cloverdale City Council Resolution of 2020, a resolution of the City of Cloverdale City Council approving a conditional use permit for approximately 4.55 plus or minus acres of developed land located at 28277 and 28243 Old Redwood Highway, APNs 117-040-8086 and -087.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilmember Brigham. Could we have a roll call, Irene, please?
Councilmember Bagby.
Aye.
Councilmember Brigham.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Turner.
Aye.
And Mayor Walter.
Aye. Okay, the next item number 7, is a resolution approving an initial study and mitigated negative declaration for the Baumgardner Ranch residential project.
And Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think that the previous item also had the introduction of an ordinance.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Now I'm lost too.
I'm going to read that. I lost my place already. You have to tell me the page.
And it's right on the screen. Actually, it's a B under item 6, so it's right on top.
All right. So
Okay.
motion to introduce for first reading by title only of an ordinance entitled An Ordinance of the City of Cloverdale amending Title 18, quote, zoning of the City Municipal Code, pre-zoning certain properties containing approximately 4.55 acres of land located at 28243 and 28277 Old Redwood Highway to the General Industrial M1 Zoning District, APNS 117-040-086 and 087.
Okay, is there a second on that?
Second.
Irene, could we have a roll call?
Yes, Councilmember Brigham.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Turner.
Aye.
Councilmember Bagby.
Aye.
And Mayor Walter.
Aye. Okay, we're going to move on to the next item, correct? Okay, then let's do item number 7, a resolution approving initial study and mitigated negative declaration of the Baumgardner Ranch residential project, approving a precise development plan, major design review, general plan amendment, and tentative map, and introducing the first reading by title only of an ordinance approving a pre-zoning annexation. David, are we just going to continue this item?
Mayor, council members, staff's request on this item is that you make a motion to continue this item to a date certain. The recommended date for the public hearing would be continued to August 26th, which would be your next meeting.
Okay, would someone like to move that? Thank you, Councilmember Bagby. Could we have a roll call?
I'm sorry, I missed the second.
I'll second.
It was seconded by Councilmember Turner. I'm just throwing names out here today.
Thank you. So, Vice Mayor Turner.
Aye.
Councilmember Bagby.
Aye.
Councilmember Brigham.
Aye.
And Mayor Walter.
Aye. And of course, item number 8, the school resource officer, we moved up on the agenda, so now we're on item number 9. Resolution authorizing the submittal of an application for funding for $3 million grant to the Sonoma County Agricultural Preservation and Open Space District Matching Grant Fund. Matching Grant Program. And David, is this your item?
I can
Council members, this is the work of our Assistant City Manager, Community Development Director, Kevin Thompson.
Okay.
He's on fire tonight.
Mayor, council members, this is a resolution authorizing David to submit a grant application to Sonoma County Agricultural Preservation and Open Space District Matching Grant. The scope of the project would include the 2 parcels contiguous to City Park to the northwest. The 2 parcels together are just under 25 acres. If acquired, the plan would be to use for both flood control, recharge basin, and recreational opportunities. The Public Works Director knows a lot more about the flood control, so if you have questions about that, I'm hoping he can help out. It's a beautiful piece of property. It is partly flat, where there's some vineyards that have been there for many, many years, and then it goes up the hill. One of the critical components to this application is a willing sell letter from the owners. And we've been working with Mayor Walter, who's been really helping us try to get this letter. We've been promised that it is forthcoming. It's been a while. At this point, we're probably about 50% done with the application. We've kind of pulled back a little bit, kind of waiting for this letter. The application date is August 31st. So we're hoping to get the letter, and when we do, we'll charge forward and complete the application, and then submit it with this resolution. So if you have any questions, I'm here, and that's kind of it. It's a really great opportunity. So we're hoping that we can get that letter and get the application in.
Thank you, Kevin, and I agree. This will solve a lot of the problems that we have with our culvert system throughout the city. So Council members, are there any questions for staff at this time? Councilmember Bagby?
Yeah, as far as the application process goes, I'm seeing it's typically every 2 years, but do you know when, knock on wood, we would have an answer and know if we're able to move forward pending the receipt of a letter?
Yeah, I'd probably defer to David. I know we went through this for our other application. They have extended the deadline from, I think, it was April or May. So they have pushed it back. So it's going to push everything back. So I don't know, David, if you have any insight on that.
Yeah, the deadline for submittal of an application is August 31st. So it's quickly approaching. Obviously, the resolution that we're asking council to take action on tonight is a critical required item for the application. In addition to the resolution, the application does require a letter from the property owners indicating their willingness to participate in the matching grant program with the city. And we do hope to obtain that prior to the grant application deadline. If we are not successful, obviously we can return and revisit this in a 2-year time frame, but our goal is to get an application in. The commitment of funding that we're requesting from the open space, just to note, is about half of the proceeds that are available. We understand the budget's around $6 million, and we're asking for about half of that, which includes for another parcel that's outside the city limits.
Well, council members, any other questions?
No, I know. Mayor, did you have some comments? Because I was going to speak highly of you if you'll give me a chance.
Please don't do that.
I know how hard you worked on this. This is a classic example of something that comes up that seems to be really sudden and been in the works for a long time. And it can't be underscored how much the mayor has worked on this, and the city manager, assistant city manager. And it's much of it is the brainchild of our city engineer, because it checks so many boxes. It's one of the challenges of opportunities like this, is that in order to get funding, you have to be able to check so many of the boxes, and that's what this project does. It's recreational, it's stormwater, it sets us up if we're successful with open space. It sets us up for other state or federal grant funding as well. So fingers crossed. I won't jinx us anymore, but a lot has gone into this tiny little item tonight, and I just want to make sure that you guys get the credit for it.
Well, thank you. And I'm not sure, Kevin, please stop me if I say too much, because I know we're still in a negotiation mode right now. But, I really view this as an opportunity for us to partner with the county. This is going to be a county facility too. Just about everything in Cloverdale, all of the park systems in Cloverdale, as far as I'm concerned, are utilized by county folks as well. And we welcome them. There are no recreational playgrounds, baseball fields, soccer fields for the county residents that live north. So I really think it's important that the county partners with us as we renovate our parks and our baseball fields and all. It's important that they step up to the plate with some of their money as well. This is an ideal example of what we could do together, especially the open space district on that county property. So
yeah.
Anyhow, I rambled enough. Anything else, council members? Okay, well, I think we're being asked this evening to approve
the resolution.
Yes.
We'll look at this right here on the screen. I'd like to make a motion to adopt the resolution entitled "Resolution of the City of Cloverdale City Council authorizing the submittal of an application for funding for a $3 million grant to the Sonoma County Agricultural Preservation and Open Space District's matching grant program for the Cloverdale Headwaters Acquisition for Park Expansion and Flood and Recharge Mitigation Project located contiguous to the City Park in Cloverdale,
determining that the project is consistent with the City of Cloverdale general plan, acknowledging that there are sufficient match funds and fund to operate and maintain the project, and authorizing the city manager to sign and submit all required documentation for the application and grant agreement documents if awarded.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilmember Brigham. We have a roll call, Irene?
Yes. Vice Mayor Turner.
Aye.
Councilmember Bagby.
Aye.
Councilmember Brigham.
Aye.
And Mayor Walter.
Aye. And before we move on, I apologize. We did not do a public comment on this item. Irene, is there anyone in the Zoom room?
No, no council.
Okay, so then let's move on to subcommittee reports. Finance, administration, and police.
Oh, yes, Mr. Mayor, our next meeting is September 1st. At last meeting, we were discussing community engagement as part of My Brother's Keeper Alliance and the utility user tax measure. Are there any questions from council members on those items? Right, I think that concludes my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Next is the planning sustainability. Our next meeting is August the 18th at 4 o'clock. And Public Works.
I'll go ahead and cover this for Marta for the time being. Public Works next meeting is going to be September the 22nd, 2020. Understanding that it could very well be just to let us know it's been done. Did we capture that? We'll go ahead and add the 3rd Street culvert to that subcommittee meeting, and we'll just see that through to completion. Other than that, no other updates at this time. Thank you.
Okay, how about the City Fire District?
Joint City Fire District, Irene has been awesome, and she followed through today on us trying to get our special meeting together. But until that is set up, our next meeting is scheduled for October the 12th, 2020. We're really going to be looking at updates and preparation for the fire season and just getting some of that insight from our local experts who will be just kind of fighting, so to speak, for lack of a better word. Thank you. Oh, that's me again. Joint City School District. Boy, I don't realize how much I talk when Martha's not here. Our next meeting is Monday the 17th at 5 p.m. I have a feeling there's going to be a pretty extensive dialogue about the MOU we discussed this evening. In addition to being afforded an introduction from the new school superintendent and hearing their updates on the reopening of schools and what distance learning might look like. So that'll be August 17th, 2020, 5 p.m. Find us on Zoom.
Thank you. Next is the Homeless Community Advisory Group, and we're still trying to get a date together on that. Council members, before I move off of this, are there any questions about any of the committee reports? Okay. Chief Ferguson, I just have one quick question. Going back to the MOU, have you had the opportunity to meet with Betha, the new superintendent of schools?
No, unfortunately, we were going to try to do that, but I think she was going to be on vacation when we had that meeting set up. But I am looking forward to being part of that school joint meeting where we do the introductions.
Okay. All right. I think Councilmember Bagby and I had the opportunity to sit with her over a cup of coffee a few weeks back, and seems to be very highly qualified to handle that position. And it'd be interesting to see what happens there. So thank you. Okay, next is just some bullet points here. Informational reports, anything?
Oh, council reports, Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry?
Council reports.
Oh, please.
And yeah, unfortunately, I was cramming and trying to get that 400-page packet, and I did not get my council report together in writing, but I did want to make the council aware of events at the Sonoma County Transit Authority meeting regarding the Measure M renewal. And the drama goes on in Sonoma County. we were considering asking the supervisors to pull the measure because yet another supposedly business interest in Sonoma County has weighed in and said that he will spend, I believe the words were, whatever it takes to defeat the measure. And that kind of threw us into a debate as to whether or not it was really time to go, because as we know, Measure M, it does sunset in 2024. So there are opportunities to go out again in 2022, 2024, but it's such an important issue and source of revenue, especially for Cloverdale. It's really our only source of revenue for roads and other items. And it's our only source of revenue for like federal matching funds, for example, for bigger projects. So my concern and kind of what I argued for on behalf of Cloverdale, not able to consult with my counsel before we kind of got that bombshell on Monday morning was knowing what our budget situation is and not wanting to throw good money after bad. So there was a motion and that was approved to ask the supervisors to pull the item from the ballot, but it failed by 1 vote. So we are moving, there was drama, but we are moving forward and it is going to be on the ballot in November. But I believe that, you know, we have to be very strategic about our ballot measure as well. And it's unknown as to whether or not this individual is going to go after city only ballot measures. So only time will tell. That concludes my report. I'll submit everything else and all of my other activities in writing at the next council meeting.
Thank you. Councilmember Turner?
Melanie, do you mind offering your perception at why so motivated to kill it?
I'll just cut to the chase, Jason. This is a battle for the soul of Sonoma County voters. There's in Sonoma County, we kind of get the reputation for being very progressive and very environmental, and that's true to an extent, but there's always been, a controlling hand by the development interests. And I think that with recent events and changing demographics, they're very fearful that they're losing their grip. And because I don't see this as, I understand the anti-tax mentality, but when I hear something like this coming from a developer and from groups that are supposed to represent, road construction crews and, road construction companies, and I see them pulling back, it's no longer about what it's about, if that makes any sense. Because for us, especially now, this measure is now in our current climate, it is an economic development measure. It is a way for us to qualify for federal matching funds for road construction, which, let's face it, we've got plenty of contractors and plenty of workers in this county who they're going to need to go back to work. And this is going to be vital, vital for our local projects, but also regionally. So yeah, that's the answer. Is I think this is a power struggle. And that's probably a little too political, but I'm not the only person who sees it that way.
And my last question is, what's your perception on why it didn't pass the county to pull it? What made the individuals who approved it want to push on nonetheless? In my opinion, I think that there are bigger cities that, in some cases, they're kind of saying, you know what, this is the time we have to do it. We have to move forward. They are bigger cities for whom that paying for that, because if we lose, Cloverdale is going to have to cough up the money they're going to cough up like $9,000 to $14,000 if we lose. If we put it on the ballot and it passes, the upfront payment is kind of it's baked into the ballot measure. We don't have to pay anything. And so I felt that, and you're entitled to an answer. You're entitled to this answer. This was my thinking as to how I voted. I thought that with our budget situation, the way it is, as angry as this makes me and as desperately as we need this money,
I felt like we have 2 more opportunities in 22 and 24 to go out for renewal. And so I didn't really want to throw good money after bad and then also have a big ballot bill come due next year and have us have absolutely nothing to show for it. Not every other city is in the position that we are in. So I made the best decision I could at the time, even though it absolutely burned my bacon to do it. But I lost. So, so it is actually going, we went to the supervisors and they, it is definitely going to be on the ballot. So I guess what we have to do now is if we want it, we have to fight for it. And we are also going to have to tell our constituents to get out and fight for it.
Awesome. Thank you for the insight, Melanie. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, informational reports, any others? How about legislative reports, letters, and support or opposition?
No items.
Okay. City manager, city attorney reports?
No reports from the city manager.
Okay. Status update on current emergency, discussion, and possible direction relative to COVID-19.
Mayor, council members, just to provide an update on the enforcement ordinance. As the council's aware, the County Board of Supervisors did adopt the enforcement ordinance, which put in place an administrative citation process for non-compliance with the health order. Staff is in process of providing our contact information to the county so that referral hotline messages will go to our police department and be documented and then referred out based on the nature of the complaint. And so that'll be an active process that will involve our police department as well as our community development staff when it pertains to a business that's considered non-compliant with the health order. End of report.
David, Chief, on those reports that are going to be coming in through the county hotline, are they anonymous or do the people have to leave their names?
I don't know 100% on that, Mayor. I haven't gotten the details of that. I'm not sure if David knows. It would be my best guess that it would be anonymous. But people can report and on any business or any individual, and it sounds like that's happening quite regularly.
And if I may, Mayor, I think folks may have an option. I've seen some calls already for other jurisdictions, and I've heard my colleagues that some of them actually do have names. So I think that folks may have the option, but like the chief says, I suspect that some people that don't feel comfortable may be calling in, leaving a voicemail just anonymously in order to report a business or some activity.
Well, I hope that that we don't have a lot of pranksters abusing that. And my battery is down to 5% on my computer, so we're going to rapidly move along.
I have one quick
question. Go.
Kevin, how's the water grant doing? And yeah,
19.
Say that again.
We've had 19 paid out.
And our capacity is 31, if I remember correctly.
Well, we're getting into the next fiscal year, so I kept promising you that I need to come back and ask if you want to use the current fiscal year's money for that purpose. We've been using last year's money.
I'd be intrigued to hear council's idea on some options for maybe even expanding grants into other areas like connectivity issues for distance learning and stuff like that. So happy to hear that the water program is still moving forward, and look forward to some options that you can bring forward. Thank you.
Okay, how about council direction for future agenda items?
I don't have any future agenda items, but did we miss one of the communication letters under communication?
Oh yeah, about the bus.
Oh, okay. Is that from Mrs. Steele?
Yeah, that one.
Okay, well.
It was submitted as additional after.
Yeah, I printed my agenda off, I think, before. But let's finish up and we'll go back to that. Any direction for future agenda items? Okay, none. Why don't we go back to that? Correspondence. I received a letter from, or phone call actually from Mrs. Steele. And she had a few complaints about the bus. And I listened to her. I asked her to please put it in writing. And I asked her to copy me and Councilmember Cruz, because I thought the bus route was Councilmember Cruz's committee under Public Works. And I'm not quite sure if that's right or comes under your committee and my committee, Mary Ann, Planning and Sustainability. I'm sorry? No, it does. Okay, so there was a letter, and apparently letters have been written before from Mrs. Steele, and they've been addressed, her concerns. I think Councilmember Cruz has passed that along to the fellow down at the county, Brian. Thank you, Brian Albee. So it's still kind of on hold right now, but Mary Ann, you and I will follow up with that meeting on the 18th, just as a general comment type review. Okay. Did you have something you wanted to add to it, or do you want to wait?
I really don't. I was just noticing that we hadn't discussed it at all, and I know that she's very concerned about the whole issue.
She is, and
Yes.
You know, we'll just discuss it at our meeting. So.
All right.
Council members, anything else before I adjourn the meeting? David, Jose, anything? No? Okay. All right. Well, staff, as always, thank you. And look forward to seeing you soon, and meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Take care, you guys.